We love that umbrella guy. All right. Thank you.
I'm calling from Los Angeles, and I'm having a little problem under the name ThatUmbrellaGuy. I sent him my phone number at least 20 times in the chat and told him to call me. He ignored me. I'm a man. I filed the report. If you guys could take a look at it and give me a call back, I would love to hear what you guys can do to help us. We really need to kind of stop this guy at least until Monday. I told him to call me. I'm a
Rolling up, I'm feeling fly, yeah, I'm so damn fresh. Got that platinum grill, bringing in the chest. Diamonds in my mouth, shining when I speak. That umbrella guy, flossing speaking geek. Ice on my teeth, I'm dripping so hard. Platinum grills, I'm the king of the boulevard. Throwing money in the club, making haters mad. I'm the baddest in the game, no one gets a pass. Ooh yeah. Crushing all these lines, yeah, I feel fly. Rolling on the dubs, that umbrella guy. Iced out pro on the boulevard. You ain't a comic gangster, don't be playing hard. Ice on my teeth, I'm flying so high. Dropping the bass, that umbrella guy. One drill to rule them all, one drill to bind them. Baby, I'm so iced out, gonna blind them. Rolling in town, I'm an army of one. Doing verbal walk-bys, blazing like the sun. Riding in my whip, crushing false accusers. Dropping off the bass on the real abusers. Yeah. Living life fast, no time for the slow. Justice on my mind, stacking up on that flow. Life in the fast lane, no time to blink. Ice on my teeth, watch it when I speak. Chillin' on my rhymes, never missing a beat. Ice on my teeth, yeah, I'm living that sweet. That umbrella guy, bringing the platinum heat. Crushing every hater, no time for defeat. Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah, indeed. Man, how is it going tonight? Welcome. And depending on, again, we will not get very political tonight, but depending on, I guess, where you stand with something, I guess it's congratulations or condolences, or maybe you're like me and are like, it's another day. You know? Oh, man. I do have to say one thing, though. One thing that has really disturbed me that I have seen all over social media, and that is people, I'm going to say this in a platform-friendly way. There are people out there that keep talking about ending themselves because of this, the election. And if people are really serious about stuff like that, go get help, for real, professional help. I don't mean that rudely or anything else. I'm serious. It's an election, man. 4 years, you'll notice another politician will come in. You'll dislike most of them. Every now and then you'll pin hopes on people and probably be disappointed. So, you know, your day, the sun will rise tomorrow. But yes, if you feel like that for real, please get professional help. And like I said, I'm not saying that in a terrible way or anything like that at all. I've just seen that all over the internet. And I find that very sad. Very, very sad. And there's a lot of people, you know, that either join it, ignore it, or mock it. And I don't want to do any of that. I just want to say, man, that's sad. You know, I hope everybody's doing good, though. I stayed up later because I was curious how things would turn out. You know, I admit a bit of curiosity. You know, again, the day happened as the day happens afterwards. But yeah, now I'm going to say a government hating troll. So I like to make fun of politicians, and I like to make fun of people that grab party too hard. If that makes you mad, you probably wouldn't want to be around me on Twitter, but here's a different place. Anyway, I appreciate you folks. Like I said, depending on like what you wanted from it, congratulations, condolences, or whatever, you know. One thing though, you know, there is a story that is kind of being swept away by this a little bit. And I don't want it to be. And that is the story. I forgot to put this in the header about Peanut the squirrel. You know, Peanut the squirrel. If for some reason you haven't heard about that, first of all, welcome to planet Earth. Welcome back. No, I'm just playing. But if you haven't heard about that at all, you know, you had government overstep, in my opinion. They went into a home where a squirrel had been kept and a raccoon. Peanut the squirrel, Fred the raccoon. They'd been kept for years. Peanut 7 years, and they not only they went through everything in the home. It actually looked like they were there for some other reason. Like it didn't look like they were there because of a pet. It looked like they were there because of just something else totally. In fact, let me pull up the footage of that. You know, I want to show you this before I pull up what I was going to say here. It's kind of crazy to actually see the quote unquote search footage in the after. Good Lord, man. I'm glad I wasn't sharing my screen. Every time you look for something on X, man, there's I'm going to say there's let me see, how's the nicest way I can put this? There's a picture with someone with their, what do we say, naughty bits out. I'm like, come on, man. Do we really need that in our every freaking feed? I mean, come on, you know. Okay, so check this out here. It's about 1 minute, but it really, I showed this on Megan's channel, but I want people to see this. Again, we will talk about what the hales. Again, we have our subject there, grudge judge getting the wreckage, but I don't want this story to fade right here. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I'll tell you what's new on it. But check this stuff out. This is crazy. I mean, again, this is supposed to be looking for a squirrel.
The officer opened the back of the toilet to see if I was hiding something in there. That's to find a squirrel.
They opened the back of the toilet to see if they were hiding. What? You know? Unless... That doesn't sound like you're looking for, it sounds like using that as some kind of skies looking for something else. You know what I mean? They opened the back of the toilet. And then if you look at, again, like this picture here, look, they trash this. Most people see this and they're like, oh yeah, you know, it looks like a man. Now these are drawers. Look, this is a table and all the drawers have been ripped out of it. They pulled this
squirrel. Let somebody come in here and do this to your house. And keep it like this. I actually have broken soap bottles on the ground.
Now, what's up with this? You know, they took the soap bottles. They ransacked their bathroom. Again, supposedly over a squirrel. Although, like I said, it looks like they're looking for the old rugs, you know? I mean, just to be honest, it looked like they were ransacking just because they could.
I have a stain on my ground. This is to find a squirrel. This is to find a squirrel.
Look at that.
This is to find a squirrel.
Look at that. They trashed this.
Squirrel. You see that? That's that. See that? Do you see this, guys? You see that?
Look at that. I mean, they ransacked all of the drawers. They went through everything that the man had. Like that is overreach, very much so.
You want to tell me that that's acceptable? This is the destruction that these people left in my house. So if you guys want to explain to me how this wouldn't devastate you, I have never been in trouble with the law whatsoever. There's another suitcase that came out of the closet. I don't have anything else to show you guys because the mind-blowing thing is the only places that they fucking destroyed was my room. The only things they destroyed were my room. They raided my house.
Yeah, they raided their home. They went through everything. And again, yeah, that's a real problem. You know, and he said, well, I've never been in trouble with the law. Here's the thing a lot of people don't understand. You're not in trouble with the law until you are. And they don't care if you have perfect attendance, honorable mention. They don't care. You know, just to be honest, they don't care. When they get the ability to come in your home, they'll tear your life apart. And they need to be called on that. Now, the thing that really annoys me to find out, though, is after everything we've seen, after all the damage control and more, guess what? The body of Peanut the squirrel has not been returned. Now, the reason they say that they think that's probably the case is because, well, they probably decapitated the squirrel. And God knows what they did. But 7 days later, and there's no results that have been talked about, probably because they were negative, of course. There's been nothing returned. There's been no news of anything that's happened whatsoever. I mean, the family, they don't know anything about it. They have made requests so they could bury Peanut the squirrel. They actually have a funeral home that was willing to allow not just the family to have closure, but everyone else to have closure too. And guess what? The government that's supposedly like, oh man, you know, we're sorry we overstepped here. Our bads, you know, that we're doing damage control. Now they've gone super silent. Number one, because I think that they know that they've done some real damage. But also on top of that, they know that there's going to be a lawsuit. And the family is talking about prepping the lawsuit. Like I said, this is a story, what I'm afraid of here. You've had all types of deflection with this story too. You know, at first the media, they went in with we're just asking a question. Can you have this kind of pet? Now, again, you could write an article like that. But if you look at the articles that are written on that, many of them are apologists, you know, as far as government. Oh, yeah, their heavy-handed approach. Again, you saw what they did. But they try to roll it back and to make it just about looking for a squirrel. Which, again, when you look at that, that doesn't work. They also totally ignore the fact that when they came into the home, they didn't take any precautions. They didn't wear gloves. You know, they allowed themselves to be bitten by an animal, which, again, led to the unfortunate outcome that could have been easily prevented. They also were worried quite a bit about cameras. And I wonder, you know, I've been thinking about this for 2 or 3 days now. And I wonder if they really started worrying about cameras. First of all, they knew that this was a popular, I'm going to call the squirrel, I hate the word with humans, but I like it with this squirrel. I'm going to call it a quote unquote influencer, you know? Media loves that term influencer. Well, this was definitely an influencer. People love that freaking squirrel. And I wonder after, you know, the bite and after all the stupid, plus they were ransacking the home and more, I wonder if they knew that they had gone too far. They planned to go way too far. And they didn't want it recorded. Plus the bite, that would have shown ineptitude. I wonder. And we'll find out more about that. But again, this story, there are stories that are one and dones. And I understand why they're one and dones. But this, I think, what we really have to be careful about, and I think the institutions that did this and allowed this to happen really want bigger political stories to overshadow this. They want the anger to go away because they want the anger to go other places. Like I said, at first they went with the, oh, could they have a squirrel? Then after that, they started they started going different directions. They tried to make it political. They tried to make it a MAGA issue. You know, that's what they would write up. And this is an issue that everybody cares about. You know, it's not just one side that cares about pets. Like that's stupid. That's silly. It's ugly. You know, it's not a one-sided affair. Like people, in fact, care more about animals than I think they care about human beings. And it's understandable in some ways, it's sad in some ways, but it's understandable too because they're a vulnerable population. You know, they don't have any control over the ugliness that humans do. But then they started trying to blame the dude, saying that the only reason that he was talking about this was because he has an OnlyFans, and this was all about him trying to promote that. And I went through and looked at the stuff that he was doing, and I didn't see any promotion. I didn't see him trying to promote anything. What I saw are people that truly seemed very disturbed by what had happened. But again, these are deflection points. They go through, they try to blame everyone else. And the media, again, you got what, 10 people that control 90% of the media. Like for real, that's no conspiracy. That is absolutely true. We've talked about that before. You know, if you don't believe that, again, just look up some of the groups. Like who owns Washington Post or who owns Vanity Fair? That'll get you one. Go that way. Who owns Hollywood Reporter? That rabbit hole right there will take you to Penske Media. You'll notice that they own about 25 to 30 outlets that like to write articles, sometimes pretending that they're coming from different points of views, but arriving at the same thing. Sometimes they write mirror articles. Sometimes they source themselves. Yeah. They're always they run like state-sponsored media, and it's nasty. It's really nasty when something happens to citizenry. So don't let that story die out. That's one thing I would ask, like people, if you're in other like chats and stuff, make sure people stay with that. Mention it, you know. This shouldn't be just deflected and go away because people were angry, rightfully so, and they should stay angry because that's the only way you're going to get any change here. I think it's horrible that the remains of that animal have not been returned. It's absolutely terrible. Let me hit these super chats real fast on here too. Tracy, thanks for the 20 there. Love you. Hey, love return to you. Appreciate you. Man, all you folks, appreciate you all. Thank you. I really appreciate it, especially like on Twitter. Like I said, I hate politics. Like I hate politics. I can't even really conceptualize the hate there. And I love making fun of parties when they fail. And I like pointing out there's a failure that happened. And I've been pointing that out. And some people get mad about that and they're like, I'm going to check out. That's okay. You can do that. But, you know, some people are like, yeah, we should make fun of all these idiots. And I appreciate that too. So it's all good there. But I appreciate all of you that are along for the ride and have fun as well. I mean, you got to laugh at all the stupid in the world because otherwise it'll drive you crazy. Wanda, thank you for the $2 super sticker too. Appreciate you a lot. Thank you. Shelly, thanks for the 2 months there. Hey, Tug, I hope baby umbrella girl is feeling better. She is. She is actually live wiring, but she's been sleeping, you know, she's been resting. So she's been up and down today. And she's very well rested and it's going into the night. I'm like, oh no. She's going to be a live wire tonight. Travis, what's up, Travis man? Thanks for the 5. It's sad, but I blame media for it all because the media stoked all this aggression in these people. And love Peanut Squirrel. Yeah, it's true. The mainstream, especially, has stoked so much anger and aggression and hostility toward other people. It's sad, really. You and I, regardless, if you hate things that I say, or I hate things you say, I think, oh my God, that's awful, or that's dumb, or whatever, And at the end of the day, we are still very close together. And we have reasons we say things and reasons we think things. Even if, like I said, if you vehemently disagree with something, that's okay. Because the majority of us, we're very close together. It's like 99.8% of things are the same. We all worry about pretty much the same things. We all have certain ambitions, goals, whatever, but we disagree on a few things, and that's all right. We shouldn't have people telling us and dividing us, stoking aggression. How terrible things to happen. You're right. Christina, what's up, Christina? Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for the membership. Welcome to Tugs Thugs. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. Sandra D. What's up, Sandra D, by the way? Thank you for the gifted membership. Appreciate that as well. Thank you very much. Jack's mom, thanks for the vibe. Did they send him any warnings beforehand, like get your pets or else? From what we understand, no. They just did a little drop in, They came and, yeah, that's, again, we'll find out more when we get to everything coming out in the wash. And I think that's very important too. Regardless, even if there's screw ups on the owner's part, and if there are, they definitely, should be, I think, blasted for that as well. If they caused part of that, but this was still preventable. It's a preventable tragedy. Again, a pair of gloves. Like if you have a specific job at handling animals, and the idea of rabies. First of all, experts have come out and talked about how the CDC. Here's a quote on this. I mentioned this the other day, but I think this is worth noting too. Give me 1 second. I got to scroll back. I'm usually not this active on Twitter, but the quote here is this. There was an expert talking to TMZ, said CDC's position is that squirrels are not considered to be carriers or spreaders of rabies. And to this person's knowledge, there's never been a recorded case of squirrel to human rabies transmission. Now, they were talking about different ways they could have tested this without going to the extreme too. If they were worried about rabies, there were other ways, non-fatal ways that they could have looked at this if they thought there was a possibility of it. Also, the owner had apparently been, had 7 years. He'd been bitten a few times, never had any problems there. They could have looked at medical records. They could have communicated, but they didn't. They just went in heavy-handed, and they did whatever they wanted. Sorry about that. I'm light my cigar today. My calming cigar. Jack's mom, thanks for get them vaccinated or else. Oh man, I just yeah. Travis, thanks for the 5 there. I understand the in trouble with the law thing, but that's completely effed up. It's BS. They were out of order doing that to them. Yes, indeed. But we see that. We see overreaches a lot. That's one of the things, that kills me. We see people, that don't want to take law enforcement to task when bad things happen. It's like this blinders on approach where there are no ills, and there are many ills that are done. And when agencies, law enforcement, whatever, when they overstep, they do indeed need to be called out on it. Tie stick, thanks for the 2. Yeah, pet celebrity, indeed. That would have been a good term too. I just liked influencer with that because the media loves that term, and I thought it was good. Now, yesterday, okay, now this is actually a pretty interesting topic. Because I want to add some stuff to what we were talking about with Megan yesterday. That would be discussing the absolute ownage and wreckage, no joke, of the grudge judge, Judge Thomas's. In the documents that we ended up with yesterday, which I do want to go over some of the wonderful high points with you, this, man, I mean, it is something else. One of the things, though, that was brought up in this, and I really wanted to bring this up. Give me 1 second. Let me focus this a little better. There we go. One of the things that I wanted to note when you're reading through it, it actually brings up Jeremy Hales, and it says, during this, it talks about Jeremy Hales being brought up in 41 paragraphs. 41 paragraphs of a complaint in which he is not involved. And that's 100% accurate, by the way. I thought it would actually be, since we're getting this, there were people that were asking about it, saying, was it brought up that much? Yeah. I want to cover a couple of pieces to that, just to note how insane that documentation was. But also on top of that, the whole argument that you're looking at here is the disqualification of the grudge judge. That's what it's all about. And the argument that is being presented, this is for the trespass 5, by the way. So you're talking about litigation that doesn't directly involve Jeremy Hales, but it does involve Miss Preston. Although, interestingly, depending on the litigation, her name changes. I think that's kind of, wild. Like, you should be adopting your legal name throughout litigation. But check this out. So I want to show you just how crazy. I want to add this to this discussion and really, highlight again just how much lunacy is in this freaking complaint. I mean, this complaint is, it's crazy. Now, remember, of course, when we're going over this, just to stress the fact of who's involved and who's not. Okay. It's as much about who is, but also who isn't. Again, there is no Jeremy Hales in this. This is about Preston and minor child Preston versus Granger, West, Woods, Willis. That would be the quote unquote trespass 5. Plus, you also have the sheriff deputy sheriff, rather, Gregory, that's added to the mix. Okay. Now, I don't want to review this whole thing, but I just want you to notice again when they're talking about everything here, and I had been redacting everything, taking the name to George when I discussed stuff, but they put her name in everything. This is even in litigation that doesn't have anything to do with her. Okay, like her name's everywhere. So there is no. I hate that for her. I know that they did not want that happening. But unfortunately, there are hate channels and more that seem to be taking pleasure in putting that out. But I mean, just look at this. When they mention again 41 paragraphs. Like, look at this stuff. Okay, this is again not about Jeremy Hales. Okay, and then we'll look at how this ties in with the grudge judge stuff. Okay. So beginning in or about summer 2023, non-parties, Jeremy Hales and George, fabricated a reality drama for the content on YouTube channel What the Hales, centering on Miss Preston, her ex-husband with whom she resides, John Cook. The theme of that reality drama is bad neighbors. And it originated based on the false premise that Miss Preston, quote unquote, stalked us to Otter Creek by purchasing property located across the street from the two who own property in Otter Creek, Florida. Now, Hales and George have used Miss Preston. This is their statement again. Miss Cook and the 4-year-old as fodder for content at YouTube channels subjected to harassment, bullying, stalking, defamation, invasion of privacy, thousands of menacing and vulgar comments by What the Hale's fans on social media, messages, phone calls from strangers threatening Miss Preston, strangers making false I'm going to say CPS reports, resulting in dozens of visits by CPS. Never before or currently has there been another major YouTube content creator devoting their YouTube content almost exclusively to targeting private person to persons, let alone elderly, poor, and disabled, with defamation, bullying, stalking, harassing, invasion of privacy, etc., etc., etc. Again, an entire page so far dedicated to Jeremy Hales. And again, this is the point, it's part of it that they're making. He would be a witness if this litigation goes forward. He would 100% be a witness. So you have Miss Preston that's involved, which is a big no-no for the grudge judge. You have Jeremy Hales brought up over and over again. I mean, look at it. It keeps going. Hales used his energy, his channel rather, against Miss Preston for it's taken such a toll on her time, energy, and emotions. It virtually destroyed her ability of her and her daughter to live normal lives or spend peaceful and joyful time together that any mother or child would consider priceless, can never be recovered or replaced. In addition to What the Hales, numerous YouTube channels have covered the bad neighbor fake reality story, enjoying the privilege of showing Hale's videos on their own channels so long as they propagate Hale's storyline, even repeating derogatory nicknames from Miss Preston and other quote-unquote characters in the Hale's story. Major storyline again, they talk about from here. All of this, I'm not going to read everything there, is about Jeremy saying that he has been, one of the major storylines is about unfit mother, brings up veteran nation, another non-party, by the way, in this. Again, 2 pages in. And then they finally get to the litigation. So they spend the 2 opening paragraphs of the litigation fixated on Jeremy Hales. Even though he is a non-party, they could have well added him to this, but they didn't add him as a party, nor did they add Lloyd, interestingly enough, which is always a question. People ask, are they suing Lloyd? Not that we're aware of, not that we're aware of. So with this, again, we had Madam Mayor. She responded, asking that Judge DeThomas's be disqualified. Now, this is an amazing document because it is ruthless. And it's not ruthless with insults. It's not degrading. It's ruthless in its pursuit of just facts. 100% facts. By the way, let me note this. I'm going to shill for a second. If you like the content, likes are free. Share, let people know that we're live. And beyond that, if you enjoy this and you would like to back it, since, well, we never know if anything actually gets through YouTube or not, then consider, the breadsticks. Consider backing. Thank you. Appreciate you too. So, the preliminary statement on this, again, they talk about how trial courts should keep an open mind. Judges should participate in establishing, maintaining, enforcing high standards of conduct, shall personally observe those standards so that integrity and independence of the judiciary may be preserved. Now, she notes fear. This will come up. Fear. Ms. Granger prays that when the trial court reads this motion, the trial court will see this motion through her point of view rather than Judge DeThomas's own unique perspective. Because that's how it should be. You should be looking through her point of view when you ask somebody to step aside. Because it's instead of his own unique perception of his ability to be fair and impartial. They're not saying he's impartial or fair. They're saying, instead of looking at how you think you are, maybe you should look at it through the lens of another person. Then they note, in a democratic society, one who assumes to act for the citizens in an executive, legislative, or judicial capacity must expect that his official acts will be commented upon and criticized. And that's allowed. Like, it's amazing. The grudge judge doesn't think that you or I or Hales or whomever, we should have the ability to comment on what he is doing publicly. Instead, they think that you and I, we should basically take a back seat and wait until we get edited, approved footage from a courtroom. He himself wanted final say over court footage that was allowed for the public. Like, that's wild. But it tells you that typically he's not taken to task on this stuff. And you could see why. You could 100% see why. So they talk about the first District Court of Appeal. Remember, only 90 days ago, they issued the writ of prohibition against Judge DeThomas's, finding that he was not impartial in the case involving the same plaintiff. Although they point out, Miss Preston, although she used the name Lynette Preston in that case. Now, again, we'll come back to this page, but I would love to understand how a person can utilize different names in litigation. Are you not supposed to utilize your legal name and continue, not to say, oh, well, I have 5 names listed there, 4, I can use them all? No. What is her legal name, and why is it not utilized? Why is there no consistency between them? I'm very curious about the legal perspective on that. Because again, she's involved in multiple lawsuits. And yet throughout those, the name changes, and you understand, like, that could cause issues. I mean, you could have, I don't think the judge would have any issue with this, because we're talking about a teeny place. And we're talking about somebody he should be very aware of. He spent quite a bit of time defending them after all. But you could see, you could have confusion on that. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, though, I mean, if you're talking about actions taken against somebody, what would that do? What would that mean? Oh, by the way, Lolly, thanks for the 7 months. I live in Colorado, feed the squirrels, but I want a prairie dog. I love watching the prairie dogs are cute. Little Tug and Boxcar, Little Tug. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I like prairie dogs. They're very cute. You know, popping their heads up. They look awesome. I have squirrels. Like I said, my squirrels around here are wild. Like, they're just funny. They're wild. You know, they do whatever they want, and I love them for it. I can imagine somebody else doing something to them. You know what? If a citizen did something, there would be a real problem. If they came on my land and did something to something, whether it's mine, it lives here, it lives in my yard, that would be a real problem, you know. But institutions, huh? Suzanne, thanks for the 10 there. I think they're trying to get that barn house done so they can homestead protect themselves from losing their land. I mean, that's potential. You know, what's really sad about all of this is there's been discussion of Jeremy Hale's selling his land and moving. I want you to think about that. Jeremy Hale's tried to go through proper avenues. He tried to actually get, and he did get a protective order. He actually tried that in Florida as well. He was very vocal about his concerns. He recorded everything like he was told. When he did that, they told him that that doesn't cause fear and more. They took away his ability to defend himself. They did all of these things. It has caused stress throughout his life, throughout, again, Georgia's life. You know, there's been discussions about her being ill. And, you know, no one gets better with stress. It doesn't help. I'm not saying you can't get better with that, but you don't get better because of stress. You know, you get better with rest. Well, if you ever have anything happen, they always tell you to rest, to recuperate. Imagine being forced away from your land. Now, that also could be a real problem. Like, I heard some celebration from certain people. And I thought, you realize, like, him leaving, feeling like he put all of this money and investment there just to be forced away from where he lives because of all of this madness. You do realize that that's not good. Like, that actually showcases loss. Because how do you ever feel safe there? Especially with law enforcement. It's like, nothing's going to, you know, nothing ever is enough. Sad there. And Travis, thanks for 2. You always have to use the legal name. I know. Yeah, see, I would think that. I would think you would have to have that. You, like you said, you've had your run-ins in the past. So, I don't know. It's just weird. And, you know, these are people that have had run-ins. You had John Cook knows it for sure. I'm not sure of Lynette Preston's all of her history, but I definitely know she's had court involvement in the past. And you would think you'd be cognizant of the rules of court. And one more. Bad Vibes, thanks for the 49 months. The big issue I have with Peanut is the license in progress and a literal mishandling by experts. Yeah, when they call you an expert, you should know how to handle something, for sure. Very much so. And I agree with you, Bad Vibes, for sure. Actually, listen to these two. Pickle Tink, thanks for the membership here. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for the membership. Welcome to Tugs. Thank you. Also, thank you for putting that in so I can say that. I love saying that. And Jack, thanks for the 5. Licenut created all of this catastrophe with her psychosis. I mean, it is an absolute mess. And remember, all of this here is about going to pick up Lloyd's camper. That's what they're using as a basis to enter into Madam Mayor and many other people's lives. So, again, we were here with using the name. So he was not impartial with that because of the same plaintiff, Jeremy Hales, and 2 of Miss Granger's attorneys in this matter. Mr. Shockett, whom, wow, some of the stuff that Grudge Judge did in another case with this that they list is absolutely insane. Part of it, one of the things that really bothers me, and we'll see this in here, is it talks about how the Grudge Judge was supposed to have a 1-hour hearing and decided to, despite saying that it would be wrong to continue things in the past and keep them going, he decided what he needed to do was not only continue, but continue as long as it takes. He actually went online because the Sabbath, you know, you have an attorney practicing their religious beliefs. So you have the Grudge Judge look up when exactly sundown happens according to NASA. He looks it up online. He finds out it's like at 7:56. And the trial that's supposed to only be an hour, be over, it goes to 7:30. Now, luckily, your attorney had already gone home to retrieve papers, or, you know, was in their home. But if that would have been the case, imagine, like, you're not supposed to drive vehicles or use electronics. And he was also supposed to get ready for a trial that was happening the next day. The judge knew this. This had been brought up. You know, there had been plans. It was only supposed to be an hour hearing. It felt very intentional when you read through it. And we have the video of all of that stuff too. If you guys want to go through that trial, let me know in the comments, by the way. Do you want to go through that trial? Because there's multiple parts to it. And it's mentioned in this document. So it does tie in. It talks about the judge's behavior. And I actually think I think that's important. Now, it would take a few live streams to do it for sure, but I think that would be an important thing. I'm gonna light my cigar again. Sorry. I think that would be one really to go over. Now, in the case that they're talking about, Preston v. Hales, that's what all that numbers are. February 28th, 2024, 2 days before the actual petition for writ of prohibition was even written. Listen to this. Thomas commented on record as to whether or not the still unwritten petition would be successful on its merits, stating, obviously, I don't think it's going to come to fruition. So the still unwritten petition, he's already commenting on it, even though he has no control over it. He is going well beyond saying, oh, that's not going to work. Who is he to comment on that? I mean, and like it says, from the position of, again, Madam Mayor, Miss Granger, statement's mind-boggling. Now, the fruit has been produced, and Judge Thomas has been proven wrong. Miss Granger fears that Judge Thomas will seek retribution against her, retaliation or retribution against her attorneys and a major witness, Mr. Hales, if Judge Thomas is allowed to be a judge in this case. Yes, 100%. I feel like that 100% would be. Now, what the first district said, again, I'm just hitting portions of this. They say that Judge Thomas should have recused himself on one or more of Hale's motions to disqualify. Remember, there were multiple ones. Hale's demonstrated a sufficient basis for disqualification. They cite State v., which, listen to this, explaining that the common law writ of prohibition is, quote, an extraordinary judicial writ, which may be issued by this court, quote, to restrain the unlawful exercise of judicial functions when no other adequate remedy is afforded by law. This is very uncommon. Again, you see their descriptor. It's not common that this happens. You don't have appeals court calling out judges and saying you don't need to be on this. That very rarely happens. You know, so Judge Thomas has thought, hey, I'm good to go. And then it notes, again, another case, describing that it is appropriate for a court to issue writ of prohibition in emergency cases to forestall an impending present injury. And once a basis for disqualification has been established, prohibition is both an appropriate and necessary remedy. And it was established. It was set up 100% on that. Here we go. Hale, thanks for the tip. Maybe the lawyers can't spell like that. Maybe that's it. Oh no. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe you hammered it down there. Hey, Angel, by the way, how you doing, Angel? Appreciate you, by the way. Thank you. 10 gifted memberships off that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's very cool of me. Thank you. I do. I appreciate you folks, man. Chance NP, thanks for the 5 there. Married 7 times. She probably doesn't know what her legal name is. Maybe that's the issue. I mean, there's 5 names that are attached, you know, and then that one filing. It's like, oh my God, there's a bunch, you know. So I don't know. I do wonder sometimes, with this, like, really, what is the legal name? Like, what are we talking about? What's the legal name that needs to be used? And maybe through court documents, again, these are filed by a lawyer. We're not talking about, something that was filed by her and then couldn't have been remedied later on by a lawyer in that one case. And then the others have been filed by lawyers. So I'm just like, what exactly is happening? Now, this part talks about how Judge Thomas showed bias and favoritism towards Miss Preston in many ways. In Preston v. Hales, Judge Thomas incredibly allowed Miss Preston to seek affirmative relief, that's permanent injunction, and even gave her temporary affirmative relief in the form of temporary injunction for purported cyber stalking. Now, look, there's going to be a fascinating call out about that, while simultaneously allowing her to avoid answering questions at her deposition by pleading her rights under the Fifth Amendment not to incriminate herself. Which is wild, by the way. He allowed her to plead the Fifth in something that she herself had brought. I mean, really drink that in. And this notes too, this idea of cyber stalking. That's what she went forward with. Well, all of this stuff, it's not about cyber stalking. It's about money. It's asking for money. So after Judge Thomas was disqualified, the case then transferred to Judge Davis on September the 4th, 2024. The first and only hearing before Judge Davis occurred, Preston v. Hales. Mr. Hale's motion to dismiss the entire complaint filed by him February 2024 before Judge Thomas's was disqualified by the First District was set to be heard by Judge Davis on September the 4th. Now, the entire complaint was based on her improperly being allowed by Judge Thomas to use the Fifth Amendment as a sword and shield. Now, the hearing resulted in the case being dismissed in less than half an hour in Mr. Hale's favor. This is because Ms. Preston voluntarily dismissed her entire petition against him on September the 4th, announcing this during the September the 4th hearing. That tells you right there that they knew that they weren't going to win. They knew after the disqualification that there was a real problem. And that when it went before a judge, they were going to have, some real issues. When you look at that, definitely. Now, again, when you have other people talk about this, they love to say, it should have gone this way or that way. All the documentation's there, the court hearings, all of the insanity. We've all seen it. So, yeah. Now, immediately, tenuous and extremely questionable temporary injunction against Mr. Hales issued by Judge Thomas was dissolved. Now, they note, Ms. Preston no longer seeks quote-unquote protection from any alleged quote-unquote cyberstalking. Instead, she now wants money. Again, it's no longer about quote-unquote protection. It's no longer about cyberstalking. It's not an injunction. It's going after money. And this isn't the only thing they note. There's already another civil case seeking damages pending involving Mr. Hales and others. So it notes there. And again, this is what I've been saying. Here's the problem with vexatious litigation. That stuff, when it piles up, when you see them going after people, with, again, the trespass 5, with the thumbnail litigation, that is not a good look. And it's fascinating because Bruce actually stated something about that, saying that that the reason Stark was brought in is because, again, paraphrasing, but that would look bad as far as federal litigation is concerned. I knew it would look bad. So the switch to monetization by Miss Preston, they say, should come as a surprise to no one. They call that out. Now, Mr. Hale's a defendant in that other new case moved to disqualify Judge Thomas's, and Judge Thomas's granted the motion to disqualify himself to the great relief of Mr. Hale's. Now, from Miss Granger's point of view, she's fearful that number one, Judge Thomas's will allow Miss Preston to use the Fifth Amendment as a sword and shield again. Number two, Judge Thomas's will use this case to seek retribution and retaliation against her lawyers and Mr. Hales, who, while not being named as a party, either himself or his YouTube page, what the hales are mentioned by Miss Preston in 41 paragraphs of the complaint. Again, like I said, that's quoted here. That's why I brought that stuff up at the beginning, because 41 paragraphs worth of mentioning. Like, that's wild. You should go through that original litigation and actually look at how many times. I mean, it is wild. We didn't even get to all of the narrative dysfunction in there. All of the mentions about Jeremy Hales. Because this is going to bring it up a lot. And what they're going to prove here is that Judge Thomas's, when you look at actions, seems very vindictive. He has a problem with other attorneys. And you can see that through examples, which again, they will point out. They'll make sure that people see that. Jackie, by the way, thanks for the 2. The name thing is a legal strategy. Yeah, you know, I keep thinking, is that not an illegal strategy? You know, I mean, that's where we get into that, you know. But yeah, I hear you there for sure. And what's up, Navy Ben? For the broken, thanks for the 10 there. One of her names, Lacey, was the stripper's stage name. Michelle's her daughter's name. Just pulling names out of the air. Maybe I should name myself. You know, I was thinking about, you know, I can't name myself That Umbrella Guy, so I need to name myself. I thought about like, maybe I used the name on stuff. I'll call myself Thaddeus Eugene. And then the last name will change. You know, sometimes it's Gary or, you know, but I like to side things, you know, instead of That Umbrella Guy or Tug, I'll put Thaddeus Eugene Gary. Maybe I just need to pull names out of thin air if I ever have a problem. Maybe that should be my my legal remedy for something too. Thaddeus Eugene Gary, baby. Now, Judge Thomas's has shown his bias against Mr. Hales in many ways. So the first district issued, again, now listen to this. I want you to listen to it because it talks about what we saw, but it's going to go into more detail. They issued the extraordinary remedy of prohibiting the trial court judge from continuing in the case without even knowing the Judge Thomas's conducted not 1, not 2, but 3 ex parte proceedings in that case. 3 ex parte proceedings, which is insane. These 3 ex parte proceedings were concealed by the trial court from all of the parties. Notice that. They were concealed by the trial court from the parties. So, you know, you got a problem there. The court knew that they had a problem there. They concealed them, is what it's saying. This is because there were many opportunities for Judge Thomas's to have told all the parties about the 3 ex parte proceedings in the case, yet that never happened. Judge Thomas's and Miss Preston kept it all to themselves, and they did. They did, you know, and you can see the note here. At the start of every hearing, with all parties present in the case, Judge Thomas's would begin with a rather lengthy explanation of the quote-unquote status of the record, beginning with the first filing by Miss Preston, September 2023, but never mentioning once anything about these 3 ex parte proceedings, in which over 25 minutes of exchanges occurred between himself and Miss Preston. So he would get on his soapbox He would talk and talk, and yet he would never bring those up. That seems rather suspect, don't you think? Now, all three of these have been viewed recently by Miss Granger, and we've seen them. Again, they note that these videos are publicly available online as part of What the Hale's coverage. They were released July 2024, while the petition for writ of prohibition against Judge Thomas's was being considered by the First District. Yes, they found out. See, that's telling you too. When you found out about it, it was after the fact. So, isn't that something? Now, the date of these, again, it gives them September 13th, October the 11th, and October the 26th. The videos of these three ex parte proceedings show that documents were submitted by Ms. Preston to Judge Thomas's for his review, and which he did review. Again, call out. This is absolutely wrecking person. Requests for affirmative relief were made by Ms. Preston. Legal advice was given to Ms. Preston by Judge Thomas's. Additional information about the case was provided to Judge Thomas's by Ms. Preston. And Judge Thomas's told her that he, quote unquote, knew that Mr. Hales was a YouTuber. So he knew who he was. He either knew ahead of time or he had been researching him. Either way, when you look at the actions taken, you look at those statements, it 100% looks like bias. In fact, like I've said before, even if you hated a Jeremy Hales, you should be able to look at what happened with all of that. And you should be able to say, wait a minute, there is a problem, and an extreme one at that. So the following ex parte exchanges occurred between the two. This was in October 26th. Okay, so you have her. She says, I need to also ask Your Honor things. Things have taken a huge step up with this. Judge Thomas is like, okay. This man has accelerated to the point that he is getting terrifying for my family. They note sobbing in there. He not only took us to the court in Ohio and perjured himself and lied and tried to get an order there on us. Judge Thomas says, has this case been resolved? Preston says, we're waiting on a decision right now. Thomas says, so here's the thing. If there are new developments, I skipped a couple of, if there are new developments and additional information, you have the ability to go to the clerk of court, file a supplemental petition. Basically, a supplemental petition alleges new information since. So she's like, can I please do that so I can get this made into a temporary order? And she shows documents in her hands. This is her statement. His cultist people posted this, indicating the documents in her hand yesterday online. It's my baby. And they said they're coming for her. So Judge Thomas is like, hang on. Let me take all what you got. Hang on. Let me have that. Not supposed to do that. But he's like, hang on. Let me see that. She's like, this is all of it. CPS has been involved with the governor. The governor is involved in my case because they want to stop calling CPS. Again, this statement has come up. I noted this when it was on with Megan. And if you go and you look at John Cook's statement in his 37 minutes before they're cut off, he actually makes a statement about this too. Now, I've seen no proof of that. If there is, if the governor actually got involved too, that would be very interesting, let us say. You'd have to ask why, first of all. You'd also have to ask about certain lines and then being crossed. I would really wonder about that. Now, again, I haven't seen any proof of that. But there have been a lot of claims that I've not seen proof of. So it'd be very fascinating to see proof of that actually posted. Now, no one will ever know what was in these documents, but as obviously a photo was included amongst them. Now, you can see the pictures here. Okay. So check this out. She has her documentation. She's like, oh, here's this stuff. And he's like, hang on, let me see what all you got. She hands it off here. You see that's handed off. Judge Thomas is here. You know, you see it going up to him. And look, he's got it in his hands. He's reviewing these documents, which is a huge no-no. Look at him. He's going through all of this stuff. He's not supposed to be doing this. But he is. Look at him holding that up there. I mean, you can see it clear as day. It's wild, isn't it? It's absolutely wild. Hey, Cheryl, thanks for the 20. I plead the fifth Doug sweatshirt, and I love it. Everyone says, who's that little guy? So then I got to go tell them about that stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. By the way, yes, if you would like a wonderful shirt, by the way, we made some beautiful items. We actually made on ThatUmbrellaGuy.com. Very easy to look up and find. We have this wonderful, wonderful look. And we also, again, that Game of Thrones setting, the game of the not porcelain, but I guess plastic throne. It is back there too. I love those shirts. And we have many other things too. If you like to support the channel that way and get you something, it's awesome. And thank you. I'm glad, they're awesome. I love some of the shirts. I love the sweatshirt looks. Thank you too. Appreciate you picking that up. And also, thank you for your membership here too. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for your membership. Welcome to Tugs Thugs. I appreciate that. Thank you very much on that too. So Judge Thomas's, Section 2 and 3 of the amended petition for writ of prohibition against Judge Thomas's provides the many excerpts of the hostile, derogatory remarks made by Judge Thomas's directed to all Mr. Hale's attorneys, as well as the judge's cross-examination of his attorneys on certain issues. Cross-examination of attorneys, isn't that? 90-minute hearing held in April 2024, Preston v. Hales. The record shows that Judge Thomas has verbally castigated Mr. Feather, who wasn't even present, 16 times over collateral, non-essential issues going back to the November 29th hearing, as well as a collateral administrative matter that he didn't even have jurisdiction over because the chief judge was handling it. It's also addressed in the amended petition. Judge Thomas has also degraded Attorney Shockett over and over and over for asking for a continuance back in 12-6, which the judge had granted, but clearly not without a price. January 23rd hearing, Preston v. Hales, while issuing an overbroad ruling on it's funny, I made this a horse matter yesterday instead of a sequestration matter. I was like, what the heck? That will always stick with me every time I see this. I made it instead of a sequest. I made it sound like it was a horse matter. Which was so funny. I was like, whoops, I think I mispronounced that one. Which was not noticed for that day. They prohibited Mr. Hales from talking to his own witnesses before trial, even though, unlike Miss Preston, his sworn testimony had not yet begun. Judge Thomas has stated, when each witness is going to be called, when we reconvene on March 1st, we'll have a brief inquiry. Before they're called, the court will inquire if they discuss this matter with any of the other named witnesses in the case, if so, to what extent and when, and the court at that time will consider potential sanctions for the exclusion of them as witness. Isn't that crazy? Even though they hadn't been called or anything else, they would consider potential sanctions for the exclusion of them as witnesses. Now, in the light of this record, one need not be clairvoyant. That's amazing. To appreciate what would happen in court on March 1st, 2024, had the trial begun. Such an approach is chilling and contrary to the fundamental principles of due process and causes Defendant to fear that Judge Thomas's cannot and will not be impartial in this case, which involves two of the same lawyers for Mr. Hales and Mr. Hales himself. Ms. Granger also attended as a witness, who was never called at that first hearing, November 29th, 2023, despite patiently waiting for over 4 hours. So she waited over 4 hours to be called. Isn't that crazy? Now, it talks about this. Ms. Granger is the former mayor of Otter Creek, Florida, located in Levy County, was prepared to testify. She watched in horror as Judge Thomas excessively participated in the case by, number one, personally conducting Miss Preston's direct examination, which consumed about 2 hours and was still not completed. Yeah, that's wild, too. When you go through that and look at how he did that, I mean, it's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. Number two, supplying the essential elements of her case via the questions. Also, number three, look at how these link together. We'll talk about them at the end of it. Repeatedly assisting her in bringing out the elements of her claims, suggesting that she may have other civil claims available to her, such as defamation, tortious interference with business, as well as suggesting that he would contact the Ohio judge and Mr. Hale's injunction proceeding against Miss Preston to obtain an accommodation to interrupt or suspend those proceedings involving these parties in order to allow Miss Preston's case in Florida to proceed to conclusion. Look at that. That's insane. So he personally conducts. He pulls out the he basically, you have to meet certain elements, right? So he makes sure to ask questions involving those. On top of that, he suggests that she could have other civil claims too. Oh man, you could have a defamation claim in this. Oh man, you could have a tortious interference with business claim as well. Like a judge doing that, that's insane. And then he's talking about contacting the Ohio judge outside of his jurisdiction in order to interrupt or suspend the proceeding. What, dude? Like that is beyond crazy. Light my cigar again. Give me a second. If I talk too long, I burn that out. So it goes out on me. That's why. I mean, that's wild, though, is it not? So a trial judge's conduct crosses the line. So crosses over neutrality and impartiality when it becomes overly involved in a hearing. A trial judge's failure to remain neutral during a proceeding is also a due process violation that requires reversal. Excessive participation by a trial judge may amount to usurping the functions of counsel and be an abuse of the discretion and latitude of the court in such respects, with resultant injuries to the rights of a party or parties. Usurping the functions of counsel. He becomes a lawyer for the person. He becomes their counsel. And also, I mean, how do you actually take to task? Here's the thing, too. So if you're a lawyer and you object to something going on, well, the guy that's conducting this, that's actually asking the questions here, how do you object to anything? And on top of that, it's Judge Thomas's. I get the feeling that Judge Thomas's in his own mind is always right. So how do you ever object to that? And I think that is a very legitimate concern. A trial judge serves as a neutral arbiter in judicial proceedings, must not enter the fray by giving tips to either side. I like that, again, we have it spelled out what the problems here are. He shouldn't be giving tips. He shouldn't say, oh, I shouldn't come up. Shouldn't be talking about you need to do this or you need to do that. It shouldn't show bias. The big word you need to focus on. The big tail is neutral. Neutral arbiter. So Miss Granger also was stunned by how Judge Thomas treated attorney Mark Feather and Mr. Hale's lawyer that day. Judge Thomas would later denounce Mr. Feather for purported misrepresentation of how much time he needed to present his entire case. Here's what Mr. Feather asked. Can we take the witnesses that are present in the courtroom since they won't be inconvenienced again, Your Honor? Now, this will have, by the way, this will come into play later. So pack this away in your mind, this discussion here, because as far as wrecking and calling out, oh yeah, we have the mayor of Otter Creek present. We have her husband. They'd both like to testify. You notice they point this out too, to say that she's present. But they'd like to testify. And we can do that in a limited amount of time we have available, so they won't have to return and be inconvenienced. Now, Judge Thomas has said, you're trying to railroad it through. Feather states, no, Your Honor, I'm not trying to railroad it through. I'm trying not to inconvenience these witnesses who have been waiting 4 hours to testify. Now, Judge Thomas, with audible and visible anger, said, am I insensitive to these folks having to come back? No, I'm not. I'm completely cognizant of it. You guys want to come back on a Saturday or a Sunday? I'll be here on a Saturday or a Sunday. Do you want to come back at midnight? We'll be back at midnight. But I'm not going to put my clerks through that or my court security through that. Now, Mr. Feather, he says in reply to that, I'm just suggesting that we could convenience the witnesses by taking their testimony now if the court would consider it. Now, Thomas's, he denies the request with audible anger. Labeled Mr. Feather's request mind-boggling. You know, oh man, let's not inconvenience these folks. They've been waiting for 4+ hours. That's mind-boggling. How dare you? Mr. Feather, after advising the court that he had a calendar conflict with the next morning, said, Your Honor, we'd be willing to stay as long as it takes. Now, Judge Thomas's, again, with both audible anger and visible resentment and contempt, says, you're missing the point. It's not about you and me. We have other participants in this case, okay? Our court staff and court security. And so I'm shutting down in about 6 minutes. Now, again, this all will be important in just a moment. Judge Thomas has stated that to finish the hearing that day, we're going to be here to 6 to 6:30 at the earliest. We're going to have to reconvene. There's just no other option around that. Now, in another case, so this is where he comes in, all right? This is in the case where we do have the court footage for all of it. This would be Gosney v. Griffith. The judge's hostility towards Mr. Shockett is palpable. Now, Megan Fox ends up here, you know, and Legal Vices. Look at that. Legal Vices. Oh, I pushed the, actually went to the channel there. Look at that. It's a live link in there. Give me a second. I got to roll back down. Give me 1 minute. I don't want you to have to watch me roll. But isn't that funny? I hit the link. Yeah, but is that awesome? They actually put live links in there. That's hilarious. Here, I got it back up. I don't want you to have to, like I said, watch me roll back. But you have Megan Fox and Legal Vices. They're live links. That's awesome there. Now, 2 moments from this hearing provide ample proof the judge's hostility and bias against Mr. Shockett. First, Judge Thomas's called opposing counsel an attempt to contradict Mr. Shockett after swearing in his own witness. Now, this exchange actually is, I'll pull up the exchange because it's noted at the end. We have the transcript of it. He asked her a leading question, essentially saying, isn't it true that you're right and Mr. Shockett is wrong? After the witness answered yes, Judge Thomas says, acting as the lawyer, no further questions. So no further questions, Your Honor. It'd be like, no further questions, you're me. What the what now? What is going on? You know, when Mr. Shockett attempted to cross-examine the witness, another astonishing event occurred. Judge Thomas's answered the cross-examination question for his own witness, who was sworn in by him. Moreover, and I thought this was telling too, you actually have 6 seconds of silence. Now, Megan did this. I thought this would be interesting. I'm pulling up I have a stopwatch in front of me. She pointed out what 6 seconds of silence feels like. So check this out. I'm actually going to play 6 seconds of silence. I'm going to make sure it's exactly 6 seconds, starting now. That's 6 seconds of silence. I mean, it's very uncomfortable when you look at it that way, right? And when you're talking about having this happen within the court, that tells you a lot about the person and them not wanting to say something there. Now, last but nowhere near least, this hearing in Ghazni was set by Judge Thomas's for 1 hour. Now, this gets into the time frame I was talking about, beginning at 9:30 a.m. It was set to end at 10:30 that morning. Now, Mr. Shockett made it clear that he had a 4-day jury trial the very next business day in South Florida, i.e. Monday and 5 hours away, the 8th Circuit. Mr. Shockett objected to extending the hearing, going over 1 hour set by Judge Thomas's because of all of the many things that occur between attorneys preparing for trial the business day before trial starts. Given the court ordered, again, the court ordered a time limitation of 60 minutes. Mr. Shockett had no reason to believe it would interfere with the time he had set aside for the rest of the day to prepare for the trial, including without limitation necessary pre-trial court-ordered conferences with opposing trial counsel. So he was supposed to talk to the counsel that was there. It was court-ordered conference. He was supposed to be able to work all of that in before. The hearing in Ghazni versus Griffith actually began at 9 a.m. rather than 9:30, as everyone is physically present. By 10:30, after 30 minutes over, the hearing had not ended and had a long way to go. Mr. Shockett reminded the court of his upcoming jury trial on Monday, and given these circumstances, expressed his concern about the time needed to finish. Judge Thomas merely said, well, we're past that now, and pressed on. Now, remember, this is the same guy that said pressing on. Those are problems, especially if you don't end right at the end of the day, right? If you press on, that's a problem for court security, court staff. So shortly before noon, now it's 2 hours over the allotted time, Judge Thomas has stated the 60-minute hearing would go on to completion that day. Now, Mr. Shockett reminds Judge Thomas again of his commitments to his opposing counsel in the jury trial to work with them that afternoon to ensure compliance with deadlines. And he also says his phone is literally blowing up with messages about that. He's like, yo, this is a compliance issue. We're ordered to do that. My phone is blowing up over this. Moreover, this is important here too. Mr. Shockett informs the court that that evening was further limited due to Sabbath starting in a few hours. So, you know, as far as him being able to do anything, not only with the case, but also with this other case, everything shuts down. Now, as the hearing has only been set for 1 hour to begin with, it was clear it would not conclude even by 5 p.m. And Mr. Shockett was aware of the 11/29/2023 hearing in Preston v. Hales, where Judge Thomas's ended proceedings promptly at 5, expressly stating that court staff would stay until 6:30 early, and it's not even an option. Now, the Thomases, he refused to end the proceeding promptly at 5. Called for a 10-minute recess, and then announced that the hearing would continue until 7:56 that evening if necessary, having checked the exact time of sundown on the website for NASA. So he looked up the exact sundown time. So he's going to run it right down to it potentially. Could you imagine? He calls for a 10-minute recess. During that time, he decides to go on a website, look that up. I mean, that is an asshole move. Excuse my wording, but that is beyond. No longer was it mind-boggling to request Judge Thomas's ask his clerks and court security to stay past 5 p.m. No longer was staying past 5 p.m. not an option. No longer was it missing the point to request court staff and court security to stay till 6:30 p.m. at the earliest. No longer was there just no option around that. No longer was it not about Judge Thomas's and counsel. In fact, now it was about Judge Thomas's and counsel and not about the other participants. No longer would Judge Thomas's be, quote unquote, shutting it down in about 6 minutes before 5 p.m. Now, whereas Thomas's had accused Mr. Feather of trying to railroad it through by asking parties to stay past 5 p.m. Now it was Judge Thomas's who was railroading it through. And railroaded through he did. The hearing concluded at approximately 7:30 that evening. That's wild, isn't it? Now, there's actually a transcript of what happened there. That was page 17. Where, give me 1 second. I want to know what page I'm rolling back to in just a minute. But I want you to hear this exchange that was mentioned. Okay. So there's a Zoom link. Now the court. Let's say, all right, hang on a second. Miss Kirchhoff, I know you're a member of the bar. I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and ask you a question. Swearing in, right? So she's sworn in. She's like, yes, Your Honor. In the court, the judge is like, January 19th, 2024, did you discuss with Mr. Shockett that your client intent was to be present at Walker Bullock Law Firm, February 6, 2024, accompanying his wife, who was under subpoena? She's like, yes, Your Honor. And then the judge is like, no further questions. Again, this is the actual transcript. That sounds like a lawyer, right? So, I want this witness sworn in. I'm going to ask this witness a question. I'm going to note no further questions. Usually, again, that's like no further questions, Your Honor. Then Mr. Shockett's like, can I ask a question, Judge? The judge is like, limited to that? Yeah. Ms. Kirchhoff, did you also ask me if my clients were going to attend the deposition? Did you ask me if my clients were going to attend the deposition in person? So there's 6 seconds, rather. I said 6 minutes. 6 seconds of silence right after that. And then look who answers. It's not the person who got to testify there. Oh, no. The judge answers it himself. And he's like, yeah. It says counsel informed Shockett that Philip accompany and requests that he confirm whether the Gosneys would appear by Zoom or not. And she's like, starts to say and he's like, hey, that's not my question, Judge. So not only did he participate as a lawyer involved, but he also answered. He answered for the person. I mean, that is absolutely insane, right? Oh, I got Kid Raider. What's up, kiddo? How you doing?
I want to tell them my costume.
Okay, what you got on your costume?
A plushie. I just find my minion. Yeah, I wanted it for the morning, so I wanted to get
okay. We'll have to look and see if we see your minion costume.
I have a plushie pirate for Halloween. I with a plushie, have minion goggles, like sugar plastic, and I got a lot of candy.
That's right. Yeah, you did get a lot of candy. She has a plushie costume. It's a plushie that you can wear.
It's a pirate. It's a pirate plushie.
Yeah, is that a pirate raccoon?
No, it's a pirate plushie.
I know, but is that a raccoon or a squirrel? What is that?
It's just a plushie.
Well, I realize. Is it a plushie of a squirrel or?
Maybe It's
A raccoon? Do you know?
it's
I
not a
think it's a
raccoon.
squirrel.
It's just a plushie.
Okay. It's
No,
I
raccoons
guess we're
are
not going to
not
get
a
through that.
plushie.
Okay, I understand.
This is a pirate plushie with
Okay.
an eye patch,
It's
and
got an
it's
eye
so
patch.
good.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Yeah, and I have an iPad. I can't figure out what's the passcode
Hey,
again. So
it's
you
over,
like
it's
game.
over there. You want to grab it real quick? You can take it upstairs.
No, I'm gonna leave the game.
It's sitting over there. It's charged. Yeah, she's been wearing her costume around. Hey, you want to bring it over here to me?
Yeah, this passcode is hard.
I know, man.
It's like,
It's got a passcode on it, doesn't it?
and one time I didn't look at it, but I just tried every passcode I can, and I figured out the normal passcode.
You did. You figured out the passcode. Oh my goodness.
I didn't look at it. I don't know which one.
Okay, well, this one. There you go. Was it the passcode 9977112? Was that the one you figured out?
Yes.
Okay, that's not. Okay, hey, take that upstairs.
And
Okay.
that's a new one.
All right. Hey, take it upstairs. You can take it up there and play with it if you want to. There you go. Yeah, love you. Hey, be careful on the steps when you're walking. Yeah. You don't want to step on your plushie outfit. It's huge. That's pretty cool. So continuing here, the bias against her attorney in the case by Judge Thomas is palpable. It's undeniable and obvious from the defendant's point of view, and causes her fear. Rather, she fears that she will not receive a fair trial before Judge Thomas's. 100%. Okay, in one of the Code of Judicial Conduct, it notes an independent and honorable judiciary is indispensable to justice in our society. A judge should participate in establishing, maintaining, and enforcing high standards of conduct, and shall personally observe those standards so that the integrity and independence of the judiciary may be preserved. The provisions of this code should be construed and applied to further that objective. Now, a judge's neutrality should be such that even the defendant will feel that his trial was fair. It's again, you can see the case is on that. No judge has been disqualified in this case. Now, judicial neutrality is critical to our legal system. Whether a motion to disqualify a trial judge is legally sufficient requires a determination as to whether the alleged facts would create a reasonably prudent person a well-grounded fear of not receiving a fair and impartial trial. Again, she's noting that she fears that she would not receive one. You've seen the reasons that she feels that she would not receive one. When you look at that, do you think that's a fair request? See, for me, I think that is a very fair request. This judge should be recused for many reasons. First of all, in the writ of prohibition, it's not just about Jeremy Hales. It's also about Miss Preston. Anything involving them, he should not be attached to. Anything. And she's saying, hey, I don't feel like I will receive a fair trial if he's attached. And I don't believe that either. I don't for 1 second believe that. Now, if he refuses, I don't think he will. But if he did, if he's like, oh, I'll show you, that right there is reversible. That is a reversible issue for this case. He should recuse himself right away. I mean, if you look again at what the appeals court actually said about this, it talked about he should have recognized this. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but he should have recognized that him even going in and defending the notion that he shouldn't have after everything going on, that in and of itself pointed out that there was a problem. So I don't see why this shouldn't be granted. But you never know. Now, like I said, this thing totally takes a wrecking ball to him. Like I'm not even kidding about that statement. I'm not, that's that's not embellishment in any way. This judge, he has showcased how he's not a neutral arbiter. This is somebody that has allowed his bias to leak into a case, to the point you have to ask a question here. At least I do. I ask the question of how often has this happened before? Like, what other cases? Has he just decided without knowing the facts of the case? He's just decided from go. He knew that Jeremy Hales was a YouTuber. And it looks like, based on, I guess, preconceived notion about who this person was. And you have to question how he knew that, why he knew that. Like, why would he know about that YouTuber? Was it because he had been challenging the authority within that area? Is that the issue? Because Jeremy Hales, one of the things that Jeremy Hales was not, he was not quiet about what was going on. He was very vocal about what he considered to be problems within that area. And there were other people that stood up and said yes. And in fact, if that's the issue too, that's another consideration. Because it wasn't just him, like I said. Who else stood up and said that there were problems there? Madam Mayor, Miss Granger. She talked about the problems within Otter Creek as well. Now, like I said, I believe that this will be granted. But at the end of the day, I mean, you never really know what somebody's going to do until they do it. So we'll see how this goes. I think it's just wild, though, when you look at it. And again, that thumbnail litigation, I mean, it's wild. And then on top of, check this out. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up. I'm going to pull up something here. Like when we were talking about, we went over the beginning of. Give me a second. We'll lock this in. We went over the beginning of the initial claim brought this. We're talking about Mr. Hales and him being mentioned. I mean, look, like these are further in. We're talking about other pages. Like it doesn't stop with that beginning intro. It doubles back after talking about what allegedly transpired with the Trespass 5. It starts going into what the hales. It starts talking about the biological family. It starts talking about the child. It starts talking about the court orders. And again, it's bringing up what the hales multiple times here. You can see it. And you see that. Again, they have nothing to do with this case whatsoever, except they, again, be witnesses in this case. And look at how many times that's brought up. What the hales? You have hales. What the hales? What the hales? Here's Veteran Nation. Again, not part of that. And there's this narrative, again, the biological family is doing X, Y, or Z. And the reason that they're doing all of this is because what the hales? Like all of this, even if it doesn't mention them specifically, is all about what the hales. Look at that. How much of it there is. Like I said, it's insane. Here's Hales again, popping up. All these claims about them. Judge Thomas should be ashamed of himself with this stuff. Ugh. But anyway, all right, we're at an hour and a half. I think this was a good live stream. I think I'm going to call it here. I think this was a good one. We covered what I wanted to cover here. Actually, we did that in record time. Well, not record time, but we did it pretty fast, you know. So we'll probably have a live stream tomorrow. I'm not sure what we'll cover. That should be, unless something changes, that will be with Megalodonus. She should be on the channel. That should be a lot of fun too. We can, I'm sure there will be more crazy to cover, but I'm going to let you go with this. And I appreciate you. And we'll see you.